a very warm welcome to the most awaited session of topographical maps. Today we are going to do our second session of interpretation of topographical maps. Now the best part is that I'm doing this video here in the studio with the board, so it's going to be super easy and fun for you to understand the interpretation of these maps. So let's get started with the drum rolls for today's session. With me, I am Ankana, your master teacher for social sciences at Vedantu, hoping all of you guys are doing absolutely fine and amazing. So do tell me in the comment section that how excited are you for this session. Second, after the session, do not forget to tell me whether after the session this topic became the easiest and well understood for you or not, because I'm going to try my best to do that, and I am assuring you and I'm promising you that it will happen. So let's get started on that note with a quick reminder about the Vedantu Pro subscription, which gives you unlimited live classes, guys, and with each classes and in every classes you're going to keep having lots of quizzes, which is going to give you good amount of exposure, check for understanding, and of course an opportunity to compete with the students throughout the world, right? After that, just in case if you miss the live sessions, because so many sessions, obviously you might miss something, you do not have to worry, because there are going to be replays, and these replays are also going to be absolutely give a feel of live session, because the quizzes are going to be live and even your name will appear on the leaderboard if you actually are very fast and score well. Okay, now apart from that, your problem of content notes are going to be there with the handwritten notes of master teachers. At the same time, the best part is that along with this, all the doubts will be solved for you during the session itself. Session mein hi sab kuch sort ho jayega. Class teacher, master teacher, everyone will make sure that you are not walking out of the session with any questions in your head. Also, tests and assignments are shared after every session, but the best news is that all the micro sessions and crash courses are going to be absolutely free for you if you are a Vedantu Pro subscriber. All you need to do is go on the link given in the description box. It is also pinned in the comment section. You can also see it in the live chat, and apply the code AKEPRO. That is my code. Do not forget to apply that, otherwise you will not get the discount. And if we actually do the maths, it's just gonna cost you 7.2 rupees per session and 11 rupees per session for till June and 1 month respectively. Less than a packet of chips, like literally, no kidding. Okay, so now you might have again forgotten where to find it. So I'm reminding you again, the link is there in the description box. It is also pinned in the comment section. You can also go on vdnt.in/ytpro and just make sure to apply the code, because if you do not apply the code, you will not get the discount. Moving on, let's get started with our session today. We are going to talk about the different types of maps. Okay, so we'll first refer to the different types of maps. Then what is a scale? Also, people who are here for the first time and you're thinking, yeah, ma'am, to kuch random baatein kari hai. Ma'am is talking about a lot of things which we don't know. I have already done one session where I've explained what are different scales, what is a scale, what are different symbols that is used with maps. Please do go and watch the interpretation of topographical maps session number 1. It will give you a lot of clarity and understanding, because this session is a continuity of that session. I may not dwell into few things entirely in depth in today's session. So make sure to watch that session and then watch the session. It will give you a complete picture of interpretation of topographical maps. The moment you see the topo sheets, you'll be like, "Arey yaar, lekar aao, ye to ho jayega." ठीक है? So what is a scale? Then of course 4-grid reference. How does it look like? How do we measure? Directions, distance measurement, occupation and settlement pattern of settlements, type of contours, and important definitions. Now one thing I feel everyone struggles with, and I think while understanding and while studying, even I kind of did not understand, was what are contours and why is it even used? That question also is going to be answered through this session today, so stay tuned and let's move on with types of maps. Bacha, at the end of your geography book, you can see that there are 2 maps given. Now those are the 2 maps that we use, right? So as you can see at the end of the book, there are two maps given. So one is 45D7 map, the other one is 45D10 map. Now what is different between these two maps? There is no difference except for area. The only thing that is different in this is area, and I think I'll have to write bigger. So what I mean is area, right? So this one, naturally, because 7 would be smaller and this is bigger, okay? So this is a bigger map and this is a smaller map. These are the two kinds of maps that we get. In fact, the topo sheet that you will get in your exam would also be a huge piece of paper. So that is there, and I'll have to keep switching. Yes. Then what is a scale? But normally what is a scale? See, the measurements that we use on map, right? The measurements that we use with maps are always different because it is an interpretation of what is there. For example, in a map there is a possibility that 1 centimeter that you have taken is representing 1 kilometer, or it could be 10 kilometers. So this representation, the representation of the actual distance in terms of maps that we take is known as the scale. What scale are we using? Okay, so it represents a large area of a country on a small piece of paper. And naturally, map is just a small piece of paper. How will we represent something so big on land on a piece of paper if we do not do a proportional representation of that? So we need to do a proportional representation of that, of the land on a small piece of paper, and that is what scale is. So it is the ratio between any 2 points on a map to the corresponding distance between the same 2 points on the actual ground. What I mean is that there's a possibility that, let's say, the distance between I will say Jharkhand, okay, Jharkhand is a state, so I would say, let's say Ranchi, okay, I'll take my town. Let's say between Ranchi and Patna is somewhere about 300 kilometers, okay. Now can I represent 300 kilometers on map? I certainly cannot. It's not possible because I cannot draw something which is 300 kilometers long on a piece of paper. So for that, what will I have to do? I will have to represent it in a certain form. So probably what I will do is I will draw it with a distance of 3 centimeter. Now how will that work? So how will point A be distant from point B in 3 centimeter? It basically means that 1 centimeter would be equal to 100 kilometers. Only then this will make sense. So that is basically what is meant by scale. That is what you mean by scale. Okay. Now after that, let's take example. So this is another kind of a question that you get in your exams. There's a possibility that you would be given 2 points and you would have to, using the scale that has been mentioned over here, identify or find out the distance, the actual distance between those 2 points. Okay. So the question over here is, if a scale is 2 centimeter to 1 kilometer, which means that 2 centimeter over here is corresponding to 1 kilometer, right? So calculate the RF. RF is representative fraction. So RF is equal to distance of the map by distance of the ground. Basically what we are doing is we are taking the ratio. हम ratio ले रहे हैं. We are considering the ratio. Okay. So RF is equal to RF is going to be equal to distance on the map by distance on the ground. Now what is the distance on the map? Distance on the map is 2 centimeter. What is the distance of the ground? Distance of the ground is 1 kilometer. So 1 kilometer will be represented like this. This is your centimeter. Now when you have to actually find the difference, this is how it will be. Ultimately, you do the calculation, you can do that, right? So you divide it here, it will ultimately come down. So let's say if I divide it by this will become 50. So 50,000, right? So 1 is to 50,000. So the ratio, the corresponding fraction is going to come to this, right? So it's going to be 1 is to 50,000, which means 1 unit of the map is corresponding to 50,000, right? 50,000 units on the map. So one unit on the ground represents 50,000 units on the map. So that is what the ratio is going to be like. 1 is to 50,000 hone wala hai. That's a simple way to understand. For 1, you have 50,000 on the other side. Only then such a big number has been represented with a small scale. So that is basically what scale is. Now we come to the 4 grid reference. The people, how to do a 4-digit grid reference is something that I've already taught to you in the last session. If you do not remember, please do go and rewatch that session, or if you have not seen it at all, go pause this video now and do it. However, I'll do a quick revision of what I have taught you already. Okay, so I basically told you that, let's say if you're talking about point P, okay, but I don't want to take this. Let's say I'm going to take point R. Okay, like this. Now before I begin with this, as you can see, something as northings and eastings are written over here. Now what are northings and eastings? Just like the grids, guys, just like the grid that we have on globe. Okay, in order to represent a proper, point, we have a grid of lines throughout the globe, throughout the earth. Similarly, those grid lines, parallel lines, vertically and horizontally are drawn all through the maps, all through the topo sheets. Now special naming is done when it comes to the topo sheets. It is northings and eastings. See, northings basically are these, okay, and eastings are these. So similarly, I mean, like in simple words, longitudes and latitudes of maps of topo sheets are your northings and eastings. Simple as that. So the eastward lines of the grid are northings, right? The eastward line, and the northward lines of the grid are known as eastings. So it's pretty much simple. See, why are we calling these lines eastings? Because east, west, it's parallel to that, and northings because from south to you're moving to north. So that is why it goes opposite. As you know, longitudes and latitudes. Longitudes you measure in east, west. However, the latitudes goes with north, south, because equator parallel to above equator goes north, below equator goes south. Similarly, the same concept has been applied over here. So the position of a certain feature on the sheet is indicated eastward or southward or northward or westward, whatever. But you have to understand in that manner. That is how we understand all of this. Okay, so now if I have to locate the position of this point R, what will I do? I will take this. Okay, so I see 77 and 76 and I see 27 and 28. I have taught this to you. Let me do one thing. Let me give you this as a homework question. Now your task is to go watch how do you do a 4-digit reference. I'll tell you one simple thing. When it comes to eastings, you take the first value, lower value, okay, and over here, you take the higher value, and with one you take the lower value. So I've explained this properly in the previous session. Please do go and watch this and then try and locate the 4-digit reference. Give me a 4-grid digit reference of this. Now when it comes to 6-digit, it is not a part of our syllabus this time, so we can skip that. Okay, chalo. Now moving on. Yes. Now how is the area measured by a grid square method? Now when a grid square is given, also guys, in a map, in a topo sheet, the lines are basically 2 centimeter, 2 centimeter and 2 centimeter. Basically 2 by 2. 2 by 2 की lines होती है, 2 by 2 का box होता है. Now what we are supposed to do is, and such questions can come in your exam, that you may be given to find out the distance between a particular map line to particular line, a particular point to a particular point, or just a shaded area. Now over here the best example is to take the shaded area. So we have to find the area of this shaded portion. Very simple. We'll do it in terms of square. So see, square covered half are taken as half squares, which means basically, as you can see, that this is almost half of the square is being covered. So such places I will take almost half. Okay, then squares covered with more than half. If this is my square and I feel that more than half the area is covered, this is half, maybe probably a little here, a little there, then in this case you will take it 2 by 3. Now if it is less than half, let's say less than half, maybe just this portion or a little bit of this portion, in that case we will take 1 by 3. Okay, that is what happens. And half is very clear. When it is half covered, you count it as half. Half of what? Half of the actual measurement, what a full box represents. Okay, and then square covered less than a half area is taken as 1 by 3 squares. Now see, these are the important points over here. What do you take as what? So when we have a square with half of it, simple half. More than half goes to 2 by 3, less than half goes to 1 by 3. Now that is how calculation will happen. It's a little bit of maths over here. Okay, now how do we calculate? Number of complete squares. So let's see what are the number of complete squares. So I can see box number 1, 2, 3 and 4 are completely going in with there. So number of complete squares is 4. So it's going to be 4.0 square kilometer, which means one box is giving you 1 square kilometer. Which means what? 2 centimeter is corresponding to 1 kilometer. Correct? I'm going to sort this for you. It's very easy. So one box has 2 by 2. So if I have to take the whole area, bacha, what is the formula of area for square? L by L, length into length, or you know, sides by sides. Now this is 2 centimeter, but 2 centimeter over here on map, the scale is, it is representing your 1 kilometer. So I'm saying that 2 centimeter area I have to find of the square. It will be 2 centimeter into 2 centimeter, which means 4 centimeter square. Now I have to do the conversion in kilometers, which means if I did this, the same thing will be done over here. 1 kilometer into 1 kilometer will be equal to 1 kilometer square. Simple. Which means the area of one box is 1 kilometer square. So area of 4 boxes will be into 4, which is 4 kilometers square. Simple. So my full box area is sorted. Now the same thing will happen. The area of one box is 1 kilometer square, which means the area of half of the box will be 0.5 kilometer square or square kilometer, however you read it out. So number of half a square is 2. There are 2 half boxes. One is here and one is here. So that will be multiplied by 2. So 0.5 into 2 will become 1. So this is your 1 square kilometer. Then we have 2.5 squares. 2 by 3 squares kitne? How many 2 by 3 squares do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So how do you do 2 by 3? Bacho, the area of 2 by 3 will be 2 by 3 into 1 kilometer square. That is your area of 2 by 3. Okay. Now how many squares do we have? We have 5. So what you do is you basically multiply it by 5. Now when you do the calculation 10 by 3, it's going to come 3.3 square kilometer. Simple. Now similarly, we have 1 by 3 ka square. So if I see 1 by 3, here is 1 by 3, here is 1 by 3, 1 by 3 and just 3. It says 4 over here. Yeah, actually this is 1 by 3 guys. This is not 1 by 2. This is 1 by 3. This and this is 1 by 2. So these 4 are 1 by 3, right? That is what makes it 1 by 4. Sorry, 4 squares. So now 1 by 3, same calculation. What will you do? You will do 1 by 3 into 1 kilometer square, which gives you the area of these boxes. And how many boxes are there? One box ka, 1 square ka area is 1 by 3 into 1 kilometer square. And we have 2 boxes when you do the calculation. Sorry, we have 4 boxes when you do the calculation. It's going to come 1.3 square kilometer. So it's 9.6 square kilometers when you do the total addition. 4 plus 1 plus 3.3 plus 1.3. So this is the area of this total shaded part. That is how you find the area. It may seem a little difficult initially because we are basically trying to locate, we are basically trying to understand that which all areas are shaded, which will be counted as half, which will be counted as 1 by 3. But once you have figured that out, you are, trust me people, going to be super duper sorted. Moving on to the next part, directions. See, this is my favorite part. This is very easy. What kind of questions do we get from directions? So, bacha, what kind of questions? The kind of questions that you get from directions is basically, see, this is point A, point C, point B, point D. So, A, B, C, D. This is north, east, south and west, which we already know. This is pretty sorted. Kind of questions that I may get in my exams could be that if you're moving from point A to point B, what is the direction? Or if you're moving from point A to point C, point D to point B, what is your direction? So you may be asked for your directions moving to these points, moving from point 1 to point 2. Now if I'm moving from point D to point B, I would say I'm moving from northwest to southeast. Okay, similarly if I'm moving from point A, or let's say point C to point A, I would say I'm moving from southwest towards northeast. So this now explains us the onset of monsoon which we have done, right? Onset of monsoon. If you remember, we told that the southwest winds brings the monsoon, which means what? If this is India, the winds enter from this side. Now guys, this is north. I should rather take a, wait. Okay, I will take a different color. Yeah, this is north, this is east, south, west. Now these winds are entering from this direction. Now what is this direction? We just saw this is southwest, right? This is southeast. This is your northeast and this is your northwest. So yeah, so these are the directions where the wind is entering from. That is why it becomes southwest. Okay, so this is the southwest where the wind enters from. Moving on to the next part, because we are done with directions. How is distance measured on topographic maps? I think this is one part all of us struggle with, but it's going to be very simple. There are two simple ways. See, if there is a straight distance, I don't have to worry about it. I can simply use my scale and do the measurement, right? But what if the distance is not straight? If the point between A to B, I mean like the distance between A to B doesn't go as a straight line but go something like this. What will I do now? Now this is the interesting part, right? So direct method is this, right? Measuring a straight distance is a direct method. When you take the scale, you put it there, you take the measurement, you note it down and you say, okay, this is the distance. Let's say if it is, let's say it is 4 centimeter. Then you would say 4 centimeter, 2 centimeter is corresponding to 1 meter, 1 kilometer. Right, 2 centimeter was mostly corresponding to 1 kilometer. So 4 centimeter means 2 kilometers. So the distance between A to B using the scale given will become 2 kilometer. Simple. But my problem is, what if it is not a straight line? I do not have to use a direct method. So measuring through a winding course is an indirect method. When the course is winding, for example that of a river, or if you are taking a valley, what will you do? All of these cases the line is not straight. It's not going to be straight. It's going to be a struggle for you. Then what will you do? So let's quickly see. It's very simple. Take a thread. Okay, you can take a paper strip also, but it may get torn, it's difficult. Take a thread, a twine, which also will be given to you in your exam. Okay, now we use scale as I told you in direct methods. You just put a scale and measure it. Now graphical scale will be provided along with the topo sheet. A graphical scale is also provided. You know, a graph is basically provided. You put that scale, you take the measurements. Now this is your direct method. Yeah, this is my direct method. What if it is not direct? What do I do then? Then indirect method comes in picture. So to measure along with a mode, we use a twine, which is basically a thread. Now there are two ways of doing it. Now I'm going to show it to you. This is the measurement that I'm supposed to take from point A to point B. Now what I'll do is, till the turn comes, I'll put my thread over here. I'll take the thread in yellow color. I'll place my thread here. Okay. I'll place it here, 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 and okay, I feel a turn is coming, so I'm going to break it here. Now when you break, put a knot in your thread. Tie a knot in your twine. This is one way of doing it. Then you again proceed from here. Now a new point has started, so you're going to proceed like this. Okay, start your measurement till here, it's straight, 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 and now a turn is going to come. You'll break here and tie another knot over here. Okay, Then similarly, you'll move along with this and you'll do another measurement from here to here, and okay, another, this one you can go straight probably. Okay, so this is one way of tying knots. Then you put a scale over here, a normal scale, an actual scale that we use, and the thread, because the knots are tied, you know it, there's no mistake. You measure the knots and then you add the whole distance. That is one way. Otherwise, one simpler way, but which needs a lot of precision and you have to be careful, is on the same curve you spread out your twine. Aapka jo thread hai, the twine that you have, if this is my curve, I will carefully start placing it over here on this twine, I mean like on this curve, and then put it here and leave it. Now it's done. Now this is my beginning point, this is my end point, so I'll carefully tie a knot only over here, or just pick it up from my finger. And then I put it on a scale and take a measure all together. Now I have it on a straight line, what is the distance? Because from scale, measuring it in parts, the curves is going to be very difficult. So on a scale, I will measure the length of this twine, I will measure the length of this thread, that what is it going to be. Once I get it, I can again use the same scale. Let's say if it comes to 5 centimeter, then I know that 2 centimeter means 1 kilometer. Right? So 5 centimeter will mean what? 1 second. 2.5 kilometer. So that's how you can find that out. So that was majorly about measuring. Now comes the next part, colors. I have already told you about colors in the previous session, that you have to remember that colors play a very essential role, and what kind of colors are you using is also very, very important. Okay, so presence of yellow color basically tells us about cultivated lands. Okay, now using the colors, we understand, we interpret what kind of land are we talking about, what kind of landscape are we talking about. Okay, whether it is a coast, whether it is a cultivated land, right, whatever it is. Now based on the kind of land or whatever depiction interpretation it has, we now draw another conclusion, which is of the occupation, which is of the work done by the people over here, right? So presence of yellow color tells you cultivated land. If these are cultivated lands, then in a particular stretch, let's say it could be of Punjab, what is the most common occupation? It is agriculture. People are mostly indulged into farming, right? So लोग mostly खेती बाड़ी करते हैं, farming में indulged होते हैं. So that is the another depiction that we get to have. Then presence of green color. Green color is forest. Now if it is forest, naturally people are indulged into forestry, which means limbering, carpentry, stuff related to wood, right? So all of these things gives you an understanding. Similarly, we have few more open scrub, okay, which is likewise for open scrub, sheep rearing is an important occupation. So grasslands, open scrubs, if you see stuff like that, you know, okay, this is a grazing area, sheeping, rearing of cattle could be the occupation. Then black circles means mining. What would be the occupation? Mines, okay, sorry, black circles means mines. So what would be the occupation? Mining over there, right? And settlement in near rivers. So there is water over here. Something, it could be related to fishing, or it could also have tourism over there. Then for stony areas, we have stony cutting, we have stone cutting. These are few occupations, and this is an example of that. Forest green patch, forestry, yellow color and orchards, agriculture, settlements near main roads, annual fair, trade, park, golf courses, etc., recreation and cultural development, mines and factories, industrial development. This was pretty simple to understand. Then this is the pattern of settlement that we could have. But this basically shows how a population settles in a country or in a state, anywhere on land. So you can see this is dispersed. A lot of houses are populated over here, and this goes in a particular pattern. That is how you understand. If these houses are completely scattered, okay, it is scattered, means it is a dispersed population. If it is consolidated in one place, like in a nucleus, every atom and all those elements are consolidated. Okay, so it is nucleated. And if that goes parallel to the road in a particular pattern, in a particular line, that is the linear population settlement. Okay, now we're going to talk about contours. In the beginning, I don't remember if I told you or not, but this is one thing that most of us struggle with. I personally did as a student. Purpose of contours, I was like, ye kyun banate hain? Why do you even draw this? I'll give you one simple answer which is going to make it clear for you. Why do we need contours? Bacha, if I ask you to draw mountains over here, now as you know, the screen is a 2D representation, right? And similarly, the sheet, the paper that we use, the books that we read, all are 2D representations. If the mountains are not drawn in a 3D, you will not exactly understand how it looks like. So in order to avoid this confusion, people, especially with topographical maps, have come up with a solution which is of contour lines. These lines basically show you the distance, higher distance it is, the level difference from the sea level and the peak of the mountain is going to increase. So that representation happens over here. So what we do is, on 2D itself, how can we draw a mountain and understand how it looks from top view? When you're looking at the mountain from top, how will it look like and what is the distance is given, the understanding of that is given by contour lines. For example, let me tell you, if this is a mountain, you can't always draw it like this. So we draw it certain lines over here, okay? So if you look from top, the lowest one will look the biggest and then it will keep on decreasing till here. But the distance from the sea level is going to increase. This would be the shortest, this would be more than this would be higher than this, and this would be the highest, okay? But this is how it is going to go. Now the thing is, there's a standard difference which is kept between these, okay? It's usually 20 kilometer when we are drawing the contour lines. That is called contour interval. We'll come to that. But this is what these lines are. That is why the smallest circle that you will see will have the biggest number, let's say 100. This would be 100. Okay, this would maybe just, let's say 25, this would be 50, this would be 75, and the smallest circle would be 100. These are like concentric circles that we draw. Okay, so for a conical hill, which means a hill which is in a shape of a cone, contours are drawn almost circular with the peak of the hill, which means how does the contour? So just by looking at contour, how do you identify which kind of a mountain is it? So how we identify is that if it is in a proper circular way, if it is a proper circle, what we understand is that it is a conical mountain. Okay, otherwise it will not form a proper circle, and we will see how. So when proper circles are formed, so as you can see this is the lowest one, right? This is 85, this is 90, which means we are going higher, higher and higher. And this is the peak of it, which is the shortest, and that is why it is 105. Now this is a ridge. But a long and narrow highland. Basically, it's kind of a highland. It's not down there. That is why there is this difference from the sea level. That is why it is a certain height. So it is a narrow highland. And contours are elongated and closely spaced. So you can clearly see the difference. This is for a conical hill. Okay, this is for a conical hill, and this is for a ridge, right? So we can see that it is kind of elongated like this. Okay, so which shows that it is not so sharp, it is not very conical, it is spread out and is narrow. That is why not properly circled, the diameter or radius you would say would decrease. So it is kind of oval in shape, right? So a long and narrow highland, contours are elongated and closely spaced. There are peaks and passes that passes through these. Okay, then we have spur, which is basically a projection. Now similarly, on the top of the mountain, a V-like landform would be there. Okay, so projection of a landform on the side of the hill or a mountain, the contour diagrams of a spur are V-shaped. Now because it is pointing towards the lower ground, see this is the lower ground and this is what it is pointing towards. So the contour will look like this, V-shaped, pointing towards the lower ground. Okay, Then we have watershed. Watershed is nothing bacha, it's a ridge only. Okay, ridges kaise hote hain? How are ridges? We just read elongated contours are there. So similarly for this, you will have an elongated contour. What it will do it will separate the tributaries draining towards one side of it from those draining towards the other side. Basically, the tributaries flowing on the other sides are kept separated from each other. Nothing gets mixed. It is a narrow, elongated circles. You form it like that, ridges, which will keep the tributaries separated from each other on different sides. Then we have escarpment. Okay. So what happens with escarpment is, an escarpment has a narrow tip. So basically, in simple words, it's a mountain which is steep on one side and has a gentle slope on the other. Now what happens to the contour lines when the steep is higher like this, steep, like when the slope is steep like this, and when it is, spread out, it's gentle. The contour lines for a gentle one will be more spread out, will be more distant, okay? But for this will be closer. For a steep land, you will have contours closer to each other. So that is another way of telling whether the slope of the hill is steep or close. So these are the way you can interpret or you can show your topographical representations. So by looking at this, I can say, okay, this is the steep side. Why? Because it is closer, and this is the gentler side, right? This is the gentle slope. So that is what you basically need to understand. And an escarpment is a kind of a hill which is steep on one side and broad on the other side, as you can see in the picture. This is the steep slope, this is the gentle slope. So contour lines are drawn close to one another where it is steep, and for the gentle slope it is distant from each other. Then col or saddle, bacha, just like highlands, ridges, this is also there, but it is basically between two mountains. There sometimes comes a gap. This gap is basically what it is. But when this gap is more, when it is broad, we give a special term to it called saddle. So this gap is what, col is, but when it is broader, it becomes saddle. Okay, a saddle is depressed area between two highlands. So saddle, because it's broader, this is more, col is more of between the peaks of a ridge, and this is between the peaks of highlands, broader. Saddle, col and saddle like go hand in hand, they're like brothers, but a little different. So now these are other contours. As I told you, for steep ones, your contours will be close. Okay, you can see it is close over here. It is broad for gentle ones. A river gap. So what you do is you draw like this, and this is your river gap. What is a river gap? When between two mountains a gap is there, but it is because of the river. Okay, and then these are your form lines. Now we will look at few important definitions. Now you may have these definitions, but normally when we draw maps, we have things like different symbols, rivers, tributaries, distributaries, estuaries, etc. But these are few things which are only significant and relevant to topographical maps. Okay. Now, causeway, which is a raised metal road constructed over a stream, river, railway line, or low-lying marshy area. So this is your causeway. Now there's not much to understand this. I just wanted to highlight this. That's why it's here. Fire line, it's simple. Forest fire को avoid करने के लिए we leave certain gaps of 5 meters between the trees in a forest, so that if forest fire is there, it doesn't spread out easily. That is what fire line is. As you can see, 5 meter gap, so that if forest fire is here, it may stop here and not spread to the other side. Then we have brackish. Brackish, simple, something which is not fresh, fresh water. Okay, it's in terms of water. The water which is not fresh, not fit for drinking, has a lot of salt in it, that is brackish. You may have heard a lot of plants or things we say. This can develop in fresh as well as brackish water, which means not everything is supported in brackish water. It's the sea water, salty water, right? So written near a well, and tank, which means that water has a high salt content and is not fit for drinking. Survey trees are trees which is basically marked by the government, surveyed by the government, and they know that okay, these many trees, shrubs, etc. are there. So a tree whose location had been noted at the time of survey, which is basically covered under the survey by government, and any other nearby locations measurements were noted with respect to that tree at the time of the survey by the authority. Aqueduct, aqua plus Duct. What is duct? A small hole, a passage. Aqua means water, so a channel through which water flows. Simple. Nodal center. It basically is a junction. So think about a roundabout. Chalk, चौराहा जिसे बोलते हैं. बीच में एक round होता है and a lot of ways are coming here and this becomes a junction, right? So similarly, imagine instead of this roundabout, a city. That is your nodal center. So a town which is at the junction of many routes are coming there and it is there at the center is your nodal center. Form line, bacha, when the relief of an area is so inaccessible and complicated. In simple words, there is an area which I cannot access and draw the contour lines. So I will kind of assume it that, okay, this is some estimation that I'm making that this area may have looked like. That is your form line. So when it is inaccessible, you cannot give its accurate height. So what we do is contours are drawn with broken brown lines. As you saw, this is how the form lines look like, right? Which means it is not accurate, and of course the general pattern of the ground, and to give no definite idea to the actual height. So we make broken brown lines to show that it is roughly this, not exactly this. So we saw the depiction of contour lines, and there we had form lines. So this is what form lines are. River gap, as I told you, a gap in low-lying depression or a valley in a hilly region. A river flows through that gap. When that through gap this is there, we say it is a river gap. Now let's quickly look at our homework question. Open scrub is associated with which of the following occupations? Farming, lumbering, sheep rearing, or forestry. Make sure to put your answers in the comment section. And with this, we have come to the end of the session. Please make sure to hit the like button. Do not forget to write the 4-grid reference of the point R that I gave you. Make sure to watch the previous video if you have not already. And do tell me in the comment sections, guys, how did you like the video? Did this help you with the topographical interpretation or not? And I will see you guys in the next session. Do not forget to put your answers in the comment section. Now stay safe, stay home, and I will see you guys very soon in the next session. Bye bye everyone.